Bulavinaka Namaskar and welcome to the New Look Current Affairs show here on My TV. My name is Tukini. Thank you so much for joining us and a big warm welcome to you right after you're coming back from the Christmas and New Year's holidays. We're right now into the middle of January. The results are out, of course, as far as the 2023 examinations are concerned. We have children already going back excited into school. They're preparing for it over the last couple of weeks. There's been a huge hustle and bustle on the streets of our major cities and towns and urban areas around the country. Very happy to have you back here with us on Current Affairs. And a big thank you to the Ministry of Health, our major sponsors, because they've been behind us all the way with their HIV awareness messaging to you. The important message for you and I, of course, is to get tested. If we're sexually active, we're to get tested for HIV. Once you know your result, then you will be able to be treated and, of course, be made available to the many treatments and the drugs that are here in Fiji. There are HIV clinics that are around the country, the major ones, of course, in Suva, in Lautoka, and up north in Lambasa. And, of course, just show up, please. Get tested. And a big thank you again to Ministry of Health and to the HIV awareness. We can live positively with HIV. If you are HIV positive, there is sufficient medication for us to live our normal lives, and to actually make the presence of those HIV viruses in our bodies negligible. So that's how far the technology has progressed over the years since HIV first became a huge thing in the world back in the 1980s. So here, 3 decades later, we certainly can say that, 4 decades later, that we have come a very long way. Now let's look at current affairs for today. There's so much to talk about, and there's so much in the news. First up, of course, we look forward to the Fiji Law Society's convention that is taking place in Sigatoka, right there at the banks of the Sigatoka River at the Fijian Island Resort. And there's so many issues that's in play right now, as I know that you, I, and everyone that has been very focused on what's been on current affairs, especially with the law, and how issues have been tackled with the current regime, the current government, and of course the Fiji Law Society. There's going to be panel discussions there available. My TV, our team will be there covering the events. So we're looking forward to bringing it to you on our Facebook page. We've got an online presence that's got a huge following. And of course, you can get it here also on Current Affairs, coverage of the Fiji Law Society with all the issues that are concerned. And I'm sure a lot of the current issues like that we have been following in the news will be coming up, and also on social media. Okay, now let's go to back into December of last year, 2023, where we were joined the police force in their unveiling of the Returning Blue, this huge campaign where they're going to relook at reviewing and renewing and redirecting the Fiji police force, the depoliticizing of the Fiji police force. This goes back, of course, to the 1987 coup, as mentioned by the minister, Mr. Pio Tikonduondua. Now, let's just give you this clip, because we were there, Current Affairs, when they did the Returning Blue in Nakasi, headquarters of the Fiji police force, for that part of the Suvarnasori corridor. There, the minister, of course, launched the Returning Blue campaign, which is a redefinition of the Fiji police force in order to make it more how shall we put it, effective, and also to improve its image, and especially improve the trust that the Fiji public has for the police in our dealings with the police and the community. The police wish to go in a big way in the community. So we go back to the launching of it by the Minister, Mr. Pio Tikondundua.
Thank you, sir. Marcus, I will fail in my duty if you do not move a vote of thanks in your inaugural speech for us this morning. Allow me, sir, to capture a few moments or few words or remarks that you have uttered to us in terms of policing. Yes, well said. An organization that is truly professional, an organization that demands or needs the support of the community to move policing to another level. We also need to know our law. The police has to understand and needs to know the law. And so rightly said by your good self, in order for us to have Fiji as a secure place, we need the partnership of the community in bridging that gap that we have in partnership with the community as a way forward. We salute the foresight, the intent that has come from your office in regards to policing in Fiji. And on that note, I welcome us all to show our appreciation in the usual manner.
And that, of course, was the launching of the Returning Blue, the campaign, of course, of the redefinition of the Fiji Police Force that happened over the Christmas holidays. I mention this because coming to our studio today, to come and bring you this current affairs program, thanks to the Ministry of Health's HIV awareness program, that our sponsors here on the show. We were stopped in the highway down at the back road behind, of course, Valilevu, by the Fiji Police Force, and they were doing some great work there, although there was a huge bumper-to-bumper line of traffic that we were caught in. What they were doing, of course, was stopping all commuters, all drivers, and asking for an examination of their driver's license. So can you imagine? Every car was stopped, windows down, and the police were courteously asking the drivers to have a glance at their, of course, their driver's license, of course. And this has happened today. So what we're beginning to see is some earlier, very positive work that's being handled on our roads, despite the couple of minutes that we had to wait in traffic. So anyway, moving on. The biggest drug bust ever in Fiji history, according to reports, happened just a couple of days ago. And we have a lot of coverage on that. We will be bringing you that right after the break, plus, of course, related stories here on Current Affairs on MyTV. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back to Current Affairs here on MyTV. I'm Tukini. Thanks for joining me here this evening. One of the biggest drug busts happened a couple of days ago in the country and was undertaken by the Fiji Police Force in the Nadi area. As you can see in the pictures there, it was at least 3.5 tons. I say again, 3.5 tons of methamphetamine, which has already been calculated on a street value of over $1 billion. We'll be looking at this in this segment of Behind the News here on Current Affairs. Acting Police Commissioner Juki Fong Chiu says they would not be able to establish the exact street value of it yet, but the huge amount of seizure of 3.5 tons, they may say, is, as we have finally calculated this time a couple of days later, over $1 billion. The team has been in its investigations. They have managed to interview two gentlemen, and the biggest methamphetamine lab bust in Fiji was actually back in 2004, for your information, over at Lauvala Beach, where over $1 billion worth of hard drugs was seized. Now, this is look behind the news. People are, of course, being questioned, as I said so earlier. Minister Pio Tikondondua said that they will be coming down hard on drug busts. An informant has made some serious allegations against certain individuals after the major drug bust in Nandi over the weekend. Information is also being verified on the alleged importation of arms. So this, of course, has brought a lot of attention to, as you can see here on the map, of course, the fact that Fiji is very much at the crossroads of communications here between the Americas and Australasia. And you can see in those pictures there behind me the way that Fiji, of course, has a very pivotal strategic position, especially with the transportation of ice, or methamphetamine as it is technically called. The danger here, of course, is for our children also on the streets. And according to this current government, the coalition government, they're already on the record in related stories from Radio New Zealand that we are losing the fight against drugs, and we are looking for assistance, not only here, but also, not only locally, but of course also from around the region. And we realize the importance of the recent revelations that have been made by this foundation on drugs in Miss Volatambu, as you can see on the screen there, has been telling us, and also here on Current Affairs, about how we have 3 out of 10 children who are maybe using ice or hard drugs. And this revelation, of course, brings to us just the gravity or the challenges for Fiji society. She's saying that this looks at like a total review of the social structure, the entire, the entire makeup of how are we going to be tackling hard drugs, and of course its usage in Fiji society. So this is a big challenge that we're facing here. On Current Affairs, we are taking a look at some of these pictures. They're of course very disturbing, and we realize that they beg the question on just how much work. Tikondondua is warning those people over the news that who are involved in the selling or the importation of drugs, that the police will come down hard on them. He has highlighted that police investigations currently still underway. The cost of drugs seized being around over $1 billion. They seized these 3 tons of methamphetamine in Nandi a couple of days ago, and the drugs were stored in 797 medium-sized containers wrapped in brown tape, and were seized from a vacant house that is currently under construction in Namaka. Of course, all this was because of a tip-off from a member of the public. Thank you so much for that, which means that the community and the police really need to work together a lot with fight against drugs in the country. Commissioner Chiu says this should send a clear warning to all those who are trying to bring drugs into the country, says this is one of the biggest seizures ever. And the acting commissioner says consistent raids by police continue and more drugs are being seized. We will take a little break and we'll come back to related stories from around the region with regards to the fight against methamphetamine or ice here in Fiji. You are watching Current Affairs here on MyFitTV. I'm Tukini. Thank you. Welcome back here on Current Affairs. I'm Tukini with you. Thank you for joining us here on the show as we're looking behind the news on related stories with regards to the recent methamphetamine hard drug bust by the Fiji police force that is estimated to be valued at $1 billion. And this find, of course, makes us look back into the history of the use and, of course, the trafficking of hard drugs here in Fiji. Let's go back to a story back in the 4th of July last year, where Fiji soldiers were accused of drug possession and were released by Israel. Israel back in July, in a story that was, of course, reported by Radio New Zealand. It says that Israel had released 3 Fijian UN peacekeepers who were arrested for drug smuggling after it emerged that the suspicious substance they were carrying across the border was not liquid cocaine. The 3 soldiers serving with the UN Disengagement Observer Force in the Golan Heights were detained on June 28 at Israel's border with Jordan. And suspicions were raised about perfume-making kits that members of the group were allegedly carrying, and which included bottles with liquid cocaine, according to an Israeli statement. This is, of course, a related story as we're looking behind the news back on the 4th of July last year. The kids actually prompted a police sniffing dog to react, and the joint statement from police and the tax authority said that they were remanded, and this, of course, was extended. And after their release, it turned out that the substance in the bottle was not drugs, but Israel captured the Golan Heights back in after the 1967 Six-Day War, for your information. Later, they annexed the territory. Today, there's about 1,000 troops from a dozen nations, including Fiji, Argentina, Ireland, and Nepal. Looking behind the news here on Current Affairs, these news reports, as we look at related stories to the recent drug bust, the record drug bust that was just recently eventuated in Nadi, where over $1 billion worth, street value, of methamphetamine was discovered by the Fiji police force on a raid out there, thanks to a tip-off from the public. So as we continue with the related story from Radio New Zealand that occurred a couple of months ago, they talked about how the rise in drug trafficking through Fiji is just one part of a booming trans-Pacific trade that experts and law enforcement says has become one of the world's most profitable. In Australia, the most recent data shows that drug seizures have more than quadrupled over the last decade. And Australians now, they consume 4.7 tons of cocaine and 8.8 tons of methamphetamine a year. In much smaller New Zealand, drug users strongly prefer methamphetamine, which is ice, to cocaine. They consume roughly 720 kilograms a year. Consumers in both countries pay some of the highest prices on earth for cocaine and ice, much of it exported from the Americas. So as you can see on the map there, it shows the flow of methamphetamine and cocaine from the Americas through this Pacific region going right down to Australia and eventually to New Zealand. And we're right in the middle of it here in Fiji. Fiji is the hub of the Pacific. So we've got the ports, we've got the infrastructure, according to this report from Radio New Zealand, and we've got the ability to come in and out either by watercraft or by airplane. Glenn Rowland, the New Zealand Police Senior Liaison Officer for the Pacific, spoke to Radio New Zealand. He said that that really leaves Fiji quite vulnerable to be in that transit route off to New Zealand and, of course, off to Australia. Fiji has long been eyed by international organized crime for its strategic location close to Australia and New Zealand's multi-billion-dollar drug markets. In the early 2000s, of course, for example, an international police operation took part, a super lab in Fiji's capital, Suva, that we were referring to on the show here this evening. And this was, of course, run by Fijian Chinese gangsters with enough precursor chemicals in those hangars to produce a ton of methamphetamine. But as you can see, that, of course, sort of equals what was discovered in the drug bust by police just a couple of days ago. Of course, we have been watching Behind the News here as we focused on the recent drug bust. Of course, this is going to get bigger, and the investigations are continuing with police. We'll be keeping a close eye on it and also seeing what the other local and international news have been reporting on, of course, with our MyTV online news and on MyTV itself, been covering as far as drugs, ice, cocaine, and the war against drugs is. This is a story that will not be going away anytime soon. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back in our final segment to look at the 6th year of the celebrations of the arrival of Christianity here in Fiji back in 1835. You are watching Current Affairs. Join us in a moment. We're now going to welcome to Current Affairs here on MyTV. I'm Tukini. Thank you for joining us. And now we focus on the 6th year in a row of celebrations or memorial and religious, of course, church services marking the arrival of the Christianity in the Methodist arrival of Reverend Cargill and Reverend William Cross in Fiji back in 1835. The location is Lomanikoro Village, Rewa. And briefly, in a nutshell, the history dictates that first we had Tongan, Fijian missionaries or Wakavuvulis, catechists, who came across from Tonga to come and minister to the Tongan communities here in Fiji, starting off in the Lau group in Lakemba, and then, of course, moving across to other Tongan communities in Rewa. And according to the archives, of course, in the Methodist Church, we have uncovered that the Rokotu Inriketi back then in 1835, Rokania Banuve, of course himself being a cannibal king, realized that this was something that he was very interested in. So he talked to the Tongan catechists and told them to go and invite Reverend William Cross and Reverend David Cargill in their location up in Lakemba in the Lau group. And hence the overtures were made And the two gentlemen, according to the historical records, were missionaries, of course, were also planning to come across to Viti Levu, where the political powers, the major political powers, were located. The annals of history have recorded, of course, by missionaries in their recounts of stories by the indigenous people back then, said that the Watu Katakatas, the two hot stones in the Fiji group back then, were Mbau and Rewa. They had equal prominence and power. This, of course, prior to the Mbau-Rewa War, or the Rewa Civil War, no matter which way you look at it, that Mbau, of course, came in on. And during that time, the missionaries were very interested to actually continue to spread the gospel across to the Fiji group, to the major islands in Viti Levu. Hence, they came across the invitation by Ro Kaniembanuwe reached them in Lakemba, and they boarded the boat, captained by Peter Dillon. And there at the in the open waters next to Mbau, of course, they managed to pick up the Mbau. This is putting it in very simple terms. And they came across to waters across from Cuba, where, of course, Reverend Banuwe was already on board the vessel. And hence there, the presentation was made by Reverend David Cross and William Cargill to the two missionaries, the first Christian missionaries who stepped on Fiji soil. And on the acceptance of the Rokutu Inreketi, and of course, Zakubao, he told them, come to my land. My land is good. It is good of you for you to come. And of course, the rest is history. A couple of years after the 1835 arrival in Lakemba, the missionaries arrived across Cargill in Lomanikororewa. As you can see from the pictures behind us, those are the church services that took place on the 6th of January, which is just, say, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, this year, that we, Current Affairs, were a part of. And we'd like to thank the Methodist Wase in Rewa for inviting us along. And of course, the celebrations, of course, began with the church service to commemorate the arrival of Christianity in Rewa. From Rewa, it, of course, spread out through Viti Levu and all parts of the Fiji group. Now, we shall begin, of course, with these words in the Church of Chosaya and Lomanikororewa by the Turanganavuni Valu Ronaulu Mataitini. His address, of course, Vanua address, in the absence of the Manmarambale Rokutu Inreketi, to those members of the congregation.
Last 10 or so years, 17 years there was a time for every chiefly family, labor motorway, to reflect. Nakakasama na lima ni isa ni natura, kaya marama, na unola na binat, kau dikala kila di satu. Ini ni betul yang mengisahkan proses natura, seperti kita dengar pre-2006. Belakang utama mana nono, yang lebih tinggi, yang nono urusan hukum, itu semua pasal under 30 years of age. Yang lebih nak kata mereka, yang lebih proses natural sesuai. Yang saya dia lebih, yang saya lebih rela, yang dua lagi yang lebih. Kalau kita mengenai, kalau kita lalu kita mau, yang saya tahu itu pasti. Mas kalau saya diberi pertemuan itu dua kali yang berbeda. Satu yang utama, the responsibility dia boleh menjadi sesuatu. Dalam study